Hey guys, BigScrewDeruda.com. We have some action today. Supposedly Trump has picked Powell to be the next Fed chair. The question is, as I've talked about a zillion times on the road to Ruda, there are good people and there are bad people within the Federal Reserve. The bad people are very, very dark people. And usually it's on either the head of the board or one of the regional chairs. But yeah, the question is, I don't care what they stand for. What I care for is where they've been. So let's take a look at Mr. Powell. According to the Wall Street Journal, President Trump has picked Jerome Powell to be the next Fed chair. The White House has notified Federal Reserve Governor Jerome Powell that President Donald Trump intends to nominate him as the next chairman of the central bank, according to a person familiar with the matter. The president spoke with Mr. Powell on Tuesday, according to another person familiar with the matter who couldn't describe what they discussed. So, apparently, someone very close to the president, or even the president himself, is leaking this information. Mr. Trump said in a video last week that he had, quote, somebody very specific in mind for the job. Quote, it will be a person who hopefully will do a fantastic job, Mr. Trump said in a video posted to Instagram, adding, I think everyone will be very impressed. Modest reactions for now on the US dollar, Japanese yen, and gold. However, Wall Street Journal notes that while President Trump had settled on Mr. Powell by Saturday, but people familiar with the process had cautioned that he could change his mind. Wall Street Journal summarizes Powell's views on the following. Then they go into Powell's views on interest rates, on shrinking the Fed's portfolio, on monetary policy. None of it matters. Zero of it matters. Quote, simple policy rules are widely thought to be both interesting and useful, but to represent only a small part of the analysis needed to assess the appropriate path for policy, he said in February. I am unable to think of any crucial complex human activity that could be safely reduced to a simple summary equation. Now here we get into the good stuff on Dodd-Frank. Mr. Powell has expressed willingness to ease some of the burdens imposed on financial institutions from the 2010 Dodd-Frank law, a position that could appeal to the Trump administration. Speaking before lawmakers in June, Mr. Powell said he was looking to soften the Volcker rule, preventing banks from making overly risky bets with their own money. He also said it might be appropriate to ease some of the annual stress tests that big banks must perform. He also called for revising new supervisory requirements imposed on banks' boards of directors after the crisis. In his view, a board's role is one of oversight, not management. That, he said in a 2015 speech, means boards should not be saddled with an ever-increasing checklist. More of the same, my friends. This guy is an absolute tool of the market riggers. Everybody hoping that the new Fed chief would stop rigging the gold silver markets. Good luck with that, my friends. Not a chance. On Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, Mr. Powell has called on Congress to overhaul the housing finance system, saying he'd like to see the country's two largest mortgage finance firms, Fannie and Freddie, move out from under government's conservatorship. Basically, he wants to spin it off so his buddies can make a whole lot of money on that. More private capital in those firms would reduce the risk of taxpayer-funded bailout. Here's where we get into the guts. Was he a good guy? Did he come from the good guys or the bad guys? Jerome Powell will be the first former investment banker to become Fed chair and first non-economics PhD in 40 years. Powell, a Princeton graduate, was a lawyer in New York before he joined the investment bank Dillon Read and Company, which is a criminal bank, in 1984. He stayed there until he joined the Treasury Department in 1990. After he left Treasury, he became partner in 1997 at the Carlyle Group, the private equity and asset management giant. He left Carlyle in 2005. Carlyle Group is the hedge fund of the criminals, of the Bush crowd. Very, very, very criminal organization. He will also likely be the richest Fed head ever. Powell's assets are worth between $21 million and $61 million, according to financial disclosures, which require officials to give a range in value of their various holdings. Basically, what is being done here is they're putting in another Fed spokesmouth to do the bidding of the bad guys and rig the markets for as long as possible. So you cannot expect gold and silver to thrive in an environment like that. Sorry, gold and silver bugs, which I am one. Powell will not be the one to save in the rigging of the markets. But just in case I have any new subscribers, let's take a look at the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston's website. And here we have the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. And who's that right there? That is ROOTA, my friends. ROOTA, R-O-O-T-A. It's a computer programming term, and it's the name of a cartoon character. This is what monetary policy is, rigging markets. And this is where the road to ROOTA theory comes from. You can go to the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston site, go to the publications, economic education, and wishes and rainbows. And you will find this comic book, and you can download it, along with a teacher's guide to teach you how the unbacked fiat money is not going to survive and has to go back to a gold standard on the Fed book, on the Fed webpage. Unbelievable. There's the links, Wishes and Rainbows. Deborah Carpenter Beck. Stephen Duveau is military intelligence and ran computer programs throughout the 70s and 80s, implementing the road to ROOTA theory. And then here it is, the road to ROOTA, a teacher's guide to accompany Wishes and Rainbows. Now this right here is what the comic book looks like today. And this is the version released on January 1st, 2007. And there's ROOTA, there's Stephen Duveau, and there is the town of Pebbleton. Some of the scarier parts. ROOTA's talking to her grandma. This is Arthur Burns, the ex-Fed head, talking about gold and golden eggs and how much she misses gold and how afraid they are of the big people right here on page 4. People who live in Colorland are very big and might accidentally step on any Pebble person who visits. All our people are afraid to go there. Since when is the Federal Reserve afraid of anybody? That's what I want to know. But this all led to the road to ROOTA theory. And then ultimately, there's a very important page where ROOTA is writing in the sand how she's going to allocate the colored flowers or the gold. And it is right there. And you can see what it says. This is page 15. She writes numbers in the dust. And look what it says. 11 plus 9. Or 9/11. But it didn't you always say 9/11 because here's the original Road to ROOTA comic book from 1981. Same exact thing all the way through for the most part, except what ROOTA writes in the sand. Right there. That, my friends, is an economic formula called On the Road to the Golden Age. And it shows how to run a monetary system in order to soak up all the benefits of unbacked fiat money before you go back onto a gold standard. It was written in the 1960s. It's called On the Road to the Golden Age. That's what she wrote in the sand then, and that was always the plan. And then 9/11 happened, and they decided to change that plan. And in the system, within 1 year, the entire monetary system was melting down via computer programs. And on September 15th, we had a shot to take out the bad guys, and that shot went by the wayside because Hank Paulson went in front of Congress, and Congress bailed him out again. Will there be a bailout this time? I doubt it. I highly doubt it. And then here is the Road to ROOTA, a teacher's guide, also from the Fed site on that link. And it talks all about scarcity and the need for gold in a system. And this is coming directly from the Federal Reserve Bank. It also has a lovely little story about tulips and bubbles. Right there on page 7. It's the tulip bubble. Very interesting. Anyway, that's the Road to ROOTA story. So going back to this, is Trump's pick a good guy or a bad guy? Absolutely, he's a bad guy. Why would Trump pick him? I don't know. Maybe he wants the Fed to go down with the ship. Because this guy will do everything he can to rig the markets, to continue the game going. And maybe Trump's trying to do that. I don't know. But as far as adding freedom to our system, this guy is not the pick. And that's the other thing. You got to continue the road to rooter theory. You got to continue printing money as fast and as much as possible. I think that's exactly what he will do. Each successive Fed chair has printed more and more money, and Yellen printed a hell of a lot, and this guy's turn to print even more. So we'll see what happens and see how much criminality he can inject into the system. Hopefully it doesn't last long and he implodes right away. But we will find out probably by the beginning of next year. 2018 will be the time for the implosion of the unbacked fiat monetary system. Will this guy survive or will he not? Is up to the good guy battle versus the bad guys. To be continued. This is Bix Weir, roadtoroota.com. Talk to you later.